Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
It's almost impossible to achieve major goals and your own measure of success by yourself, and isolation has made it harder to rely on regular support networks and ask for help. But there are new ways to collaborate and find inspiration to keep building and innovating, because we can't do this alone. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. If COVID-19 has taught us one thing, it's that we have to look at doing things differently to survive. But where do you find the bright ideas that will drive your business forward to new markets and perhaps new customers that you never thought you'd find? Frank Wyatt believes the answer lies in collaboration. Frank's the strategic advisor of Enterprising Partnerships, which has been helping industries of all kinds untap their potential for more than 3 decades. During the lockdown, Frank took to innovation to create Zoom roundtables, which he's called Business Allies Roundtables, to help business leaders share their ideas, problems, and learn from each other. It's been a revelation for many participants, as we'll discover in a moment. First, Heather Dawson asks, is loneliness the top problem for business leaders these days, and a stumbling block to growth?
I think that at a number of different levels, business leaders, whether they're startups or middle market business leaders, invariably find that they're on their own. And some of them will realise that they're on their own and reach out. Others will think that they have to solve these problems alone. And they can't do it within their business because they can't talk to their staff about something that's worrying them. They can't even talk to their executives sometimes because they're not exactly certain where the idea will go. And some of them have got executives who probably are really managers, not executives. They're managing the must-dos rather than thinking about the future. So they're on their own in a lot of cases.
Yes.
And we think that that's completely an unreasonable and unnecessary thing to do. And so we have built some ideas around how to overcome that.
Well, one of your ideas of overcoming that is your Business Allies Roundtables.
Yeah.
How do they work?
Well, it's interesting. It came out of COVID-19 as an opportunity. I've been running business leader roundtables for a while now, and we've done them basically on localities built around the northern suburbs or the southern suburbs or whatever. Whereas suddenly I discovered that through Zoom, I'm no longer locality limited. If there's a manufacturing company in Warrnambool that doesn't have anyone else to talk to because there are not many manufacturing companies in Warrnambool, then I can introduce them to manufacturing companies as part of a round table that come from the southeast of Melbourne, where there's a lot of manufacturing companies. And so we have a business leaders round table, which we call Business Allies. And we do it via Zoom. And it has the added benefit that they can get out of bed an hour beforehand or have a bit of breakfast and coffee. In fact, they can turn up with their breakfast and coffee and their dog and have organised the kids to go to school beforehand and the like. Whereas if we had to go to a facility, then they would have had to have left home early, left the family to sort themselves out. This way they turn up at 7 o'clock with their coffee and their breakfast and they get to choose what they eat rather than what I give them. And they stay, have the conversations for 2 hours and then they're working at 9 o'clock.
Well, what are some of the big issues that they're dealing with right now, would you say?
Right now most manufacturing or even professional service type businesses are facing the rapid convergence of new technologies. We're using a new technology right now in terms of sound recording systems. You overlay that with video, overlay that with robotics, and all of a sudden you've got a massively complex process that solves a whole lot of problems for companies. AI is being used in lots of companies and in lots of solutions these days. We're still experimenting with a lot of it, but companies are realising that they're going to be left behind unless they're actually using these technologies.
So by business people being able to talk to other business people through your Zoom meetings.
Yes.
What could be theoretical becomes practical because they can then understand how other people are
completely,
utilising things.
Completely. So a business leader might read a Harvard Journal article, but in talking to a colleague who's actually applying that practice and learning from their experience, they can leapfrog the problems that first leader had because that leader's already shared the problems and the solutions. They've gone through the trial and adaptation of the solution to their business. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or more businesses all sharing their experiential learning and coming back each month and telling each other about what they've done or picking up the phone between times because they're now no longer isolated from each other. They're actually talking to each other about a common problem and suddenly discovering that they've got others who they can talk to. And in many cases, those others are not competitors. They're mostly people from other sectors who are not competitors who they can learn from.
So what kind of feedback do you get to the participants in your Zoom meetings, Frank?
Well, it's been interesting. Let me give you the experiences of COVID, because here's a group of business leaders under stress because of COVID. I've got business leaders who rang each other and said, I've just discovered that our digital telephone, if we take that home and connect it to the Wi-Fi at home, it routes itself to the server at the business. So they're fully integrated as though they were at work. A lot of the business leaders hadn't thought about taking the phone home, or they'd actually thought, no, we can't let people take the phone home, But in fact, all of a sudden, they were able to do that. We had business leaders who needed to lay people off, and other business leaders who were in the food industry or the transport industry whose businesses went gangbusters during the time when people were bulk buying cans of beans and toilet paper, etc. So they rang up the business down the road and said, well, look, those 5 workers, I know you like them and you're really struggling, you don't want to let them go, but why don't I take them whilst I've got this spike? And when that kind of eases off, you might be in a better position to take them back on again. So we had body shopping going on, people being shifted around businesses to keep them employed because they didn't want to lose them. They were valued employees.
If a business is seriously in trouble, though, financially,
Yep.
It's very hard to admit that in front of other business people, especially if some of them are doing quite well.
Yeah.
Isn't that true?
That is absolutely true. And in fact, we've had businesses in the roundtable who have really struggled, and we will continue to do so through that recession now. What we discovered is that I'm a neutral person in that context, and therefore those business owners are willing to talk to me about their financial circumstances. Not the full details, but they can tell me it's been really rough, Frank, I'm on the bones of my ass, and they will tell me that. And I'll think, well, look, I can put a message out to say, look, there's a printer in our group who needs some support. If you've got any printing jobs that you've been holding off doing, now might be the time to do it. You probably get a good deal, but it'll actually help the printer get through. We meet monthly. Twice a month, I send out a note to all of them just to remind them to pick up the phone and ring 1 or 2 of their colleagues to make sure that they're okay. This is the learning we've got from, the suicide counselling stuff. This is the time when business leaders feel stress. This is the time when we do have business leaders suicide. We want to make sure that that never happens. We also have discovered that business leaders teach each other new ideas and new tricks. We had a business colleague, one of the CEOs, who was struggling, and he had a team of specialists. They were in systems area, and I discovered that they weren't going out and talking to their clients very much. So I said, well, look, you're on a downturn, you haven't got much work on at the moment. Why don't you send your people out to go and talk to every customer you can find and just listen to what those customers are saying are their problems, and bring that back and pool it together and find out what those customers are saying. And they created a whole lot of new customers. We've had business leaders go to the suppliers of their customers other than themselves and assist those suppliers with solutions so the supplier could keep supplying goods to their customers, so the customer could keep buying from them as a supplier.
It seems, Frank, that at this point in time then, there's nothing quite like collaboration.
Collaboration is the core of business today. We don't do it well in Australia, and in fact on the international levels and international scales we're going backwards. Even on innovation scales we're going backwards, and we're going backwards primarily because we don't do collaboration very well. We talk about collaboration a lot. We don't do it. I'm a former community development worker, and so what I bring is a community development framework to our thinking, and I engage people through a community development process, which in business terms is called collaboration. It's just changing the language to do the same thing. So my sense is that the skills of community development are really valuable right at the moment for businesses to discover the different ways of doing things. I know a company that they're in the wine industry, and they've got a fantastic relationship with their customers. And they wrote to their customers a handwritten letter signed by their owner, individually signed, not just a stereographed signature, to say, you've been great customers of ours over the years. We've loved having you as our friends and part of the family of our business. We're going through a tough time at the moment. If you are thinking about buying, we may be able to provide even better products for you at the moment because our wholesalers are not buying from us. So we might have some stock that you might really like. So perhaps give us a call. And they had a flood of people saying, we don't want you going broke. We love that wine. Now, I've taken that idea and transferred that to about 5 different customers of ours, or members of the round table, who were saying, oh, yeah, we're really struggling because our wholesalers are not buying from us. And I'm saying, well, how are you going with relating to your customers if you built up a personal relationship with them at the personal level? We've got them rethinking their business model.
My final question then for you today, Frank, would be, if good things come out of COVID-19, it's going to be rethinking your business models.
There's no question that rethinking your business model will be such that by the time you come out of COVID and the recession, you will not be doing what you were doing when you went into those two. Your businesses will be completely different.
That was Enterprising Partnerships Strategic Advisor, Frank Wyatt. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Executive producer is Heather Dawson. Producers are Nick Schilberger, Chris Ashmore, and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts and Belinda Trimboli. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.